Guys, welcome to the Ripple Effect. We are so excited to be dropping our first episode of the Ripple Effect. And for our first episode, we are interviewing Johnny B. Gore. Thank you, Johnny, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Megan, for having me.
And Johnny is a retired Navy veteran and he is a surgical RN. So today we are going to be hearing about God in the operating room with Johnny. So, how long were you in the Navy, Johnny?
25 years. I retired in 2021, so I've been retired for about maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay. What did you do in the Navy?
I was actually a surgical RN. I was an OR nurse in the Navy, and I served here in the United States as well as abroad. So.
Okay, cool. Did you like doing that?
Oh, I loved it.
I bet you saw a lot of gross stuff.
I did. It was very moving. I saw a lot of young men that had a lot of bad stuff done to them due to fighting and war and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's something that you carry with you for the rest of your life, yeah?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, so it takes a special kind of person to be able to work in that kind of field and want to continue to work in that field after you get out of the Navy and become a civilian again.
It sure does.
Yeah? Okay, and how long have you been a believer?
Pretty much all my life. I was saved at Gore Baptist Church up in Caledonia when I was 15 years old. And I still believe to this day, I believe in God. I believe you can talk to him anywhere. There's not one specific spot or place or anything like that. It's just wherever you are, you can speak to him. And
Yeah. Okay. And who would you say is the person that had the most influence on you throughout your childhood as you were growing up?
That would have to be my grandfather.
Okay.
My grandfather was Bradford Clarence Spring. He resided up in Caledonia. And I was always over at his house or up at his house. And, when mom would leave me with my grandmother and my grandfather, and we always did all kinds of things. We hauled hay, we fed the chickens and the cows, we the pigs, and we gathered eggs. And, he just was kind of like a great mentor to me.
Yeah. Was he in the military also?
He was.
Cool.
He was one of the last of the band of brothers.
Okay.
And he passed away about 3 years ago on July the 3rd.
Okay. And what would you say is the biggest milestone in your life that made you who you are today?
I would have to say my military career. The military, it's not something that you're appointed to. It's something you volunteer for.
Mm-hmm.
I was very proud of myself after I retired, and I knew I volunteered to serve my country and help those who couldn't be helped.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Well, we definitely thank you for your service, especially 25 years worth.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the being a surgical RN in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you had a huge impact on a lot of lives.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you this: do you feel that God's presence is strong in your line of work?
It's very strong. When you think about somebody going to surgery, they're basically putting their lives in someone else's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of gives you a feeling of like I don't know, like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like
Of uncertainty.
It leaves you scared.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times when people are scared in their lives, they do turn to God. They pray and they ask for safety and good outcomes and good recoveries and stuff. And it's just sometimes whenever people go to surgery, they feel scared, like they don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great unknown.
Okay. Now, how you said you were a surgical RN for 25 years in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And when was it that you retired?
I retired in 2021.
Okay, so you've been a surgical RN for say 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what made you choose to be a surgical RN?
Well, my mother is well, to become a nurse. I mean, my mother was a nurse. I used to see her come home, and she used to tell me stories, and about when she worked in the emergency room, and when she worked at the hospital, and some of the things she used to tell me. It was just her the way she helped people. I mean, it's just
So you wanted to help people.
just help people. It's something that you do whenever somebody needs help.
Yeah. And in your line of work, has anyone ever asked you, like, just come out and asked you for spiritual guidance or prayer, or either before a surgery or after a surgery?
Oh, absolutely. I've had guys, Marines and sailors that they were hurt pretty bad, and sometimes they just ask, would you say a little prayer for me? Pray for me. I've had people where I work to this day that ask me, would you pray for me? Would you pray with me?
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you're always willing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have a surgeon that prays with his patients anytime he takes them back for surgery. Pray before he goes back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, is it legal or and in accordance with policy as far as the military goes and your current employer, for you to offer spiritual guidance or prayer without them asking?
Absolutely. Spirituality is a part of the body that, or a part of the mind that needs to be catered to too.
Definitely.
You have the physical aspects of the body that need to be catered to and taken care of, as well as your mental capacity, as well as your spirituality. You have to take care of the body holistically. It has to be whole.
Yeah, no, I agree. And have you ever met anybody that was fixing to have surgery that had not, mentioned to you or said anything to you about prayer or spiritual care, that you just strongly felt led to um, step up and say, hey, God's telling me to pray for you right now. And if so, uh, how do you approach something like that?
Well, the way I see it, God gives us two aspects. He gives us time and he gives us opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
One, you have to have the time to pray with somebody. And two, you have to have the opportunity to pray with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of opportunities in my field of work where I have plenty of opportunity to pray for someone. Sometimes I don't have the time, but sometimes I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. I mean, I have not met anyone that you know didn't need prayer because
Everybody needs prayer.
everybody needs prayer.
Right.
But I've met some people that I knew that they did not know that they were going into um, as big a surgery as what they thought they were going into.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said some prayers myself, for them.
Yeah.
Not with them, but I've said some prayers for them because sometimes we have some really big surgeries, and sometimes the people that are going through these surgeries, they don't know what they're getting into.
You won't realize the extensiveness of the surgery they're about to have. Well, that's really neat. Do you feel that it is part of a medical professional's responsibility to provide not only spiritual care, emotional care, alongside physical care?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I was talking about earlier. Was you have to care for a patient. You have to care for them holistically. You have to care for everything, every aspect um, of their mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
You can't. Obviously, a surgeon is focused on one part, which is the physical part of the body and repairing that. I think as a surgical nurse, it falls upon our shoulders as nurses to care for the rest of the body and the mind and the spirit.
Right.
Because you have to know that is this person, are they mentally prepared to go through surgery? Are they spiritually prepared to go through surgery? You have to know if they're, if they're right with God. You have to know if they're
In case things were to go wrong.
and if they're mentally prepared, which means are you mentally prepared after the surgery to take care of yourself, help yourself, like, to know that you are going to go through the healing process and all that. So
right.
You have to care for them holistically.
Yeah. And would you say that, do you feel like you are one of a kind when it comes to the way that you feel about people also, it being your responsibility to also provide spiritual care? Or do you feel like that's a mentality that the majority of people in your line of work
Well, to each his own.
do?
To each his own. I feel like it's part of my responsibility.
Mhm.
Me as a person, as an individual, to care for a person's uh, mental wellness as well as spiritual wellness.
Mhm.
Because, and that's just me. Um, it's supposed to be all nurses. But like I said, you have the time and the opportunity. Oftentimes we have plenty of opportunity, but we don't have the time. And then sometimes we have all the time in the world, but we haven't retained that opportunity.
Yeah.
So me, I tend to care, like I said, holistically about
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Um, do you get many opportunities to interact with the patients' families, or is it mainly usually just the?
Absolutely, that's one of the key points of my job is to keep the family informed about how surgery is going
Mhm.
when we start surgery, when we end surgery.
Mhm.
Oftentimes when we do coronary artery bypass surgery, I'll go over and talk to the families over in their waiting room,
Yeah.
just to talk to them so they have a face, somebody to see, and put a uh, face with a voice,
Mhm.
comfort them and let them know that everything will be okay.
Yeah. Now, do you ever get asked by the families to pray with them, or do
Absolutely,
you?
absolutely. When we do our cardiac bypass graft, we oftentimes we do say a prayer for families because they're going through this too, not just the safety.
Right.
And our cardiovascular surgeon, he's big on prayer. He prays before he starts surgery.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let me ask you this: do you ever encounter patients or patients' families that are completely not believers, don't want anything to do with prayer or spiritual guidance?
Um, there are, like I said, we have all walks of life in
Hmm.
this world. We have had some people that uh, are not of the Christian religion that we've done surgery on, and they pray in their own way. So I really didn't, like I said, have the opportunity to
Right.
pray with them because their beliefs were different from our beliefs.
Right. And you don't want to be, you don't want to push your,
I don't want to push.
you don't want to force your.
I don't want to force my religion on anybody.
Right.
But if the opportunity presents itself,
Right.
then I will certainly enlighten them about Christianity.
Okay. Um, and that's always great. If you feel like you found that opportunity, I feel like as a Christian, that's our responsibility, no matter what line of work we're in, no matter what we're doing. That it's all of our responsibilities to be disciples and introduce anybody willing, to Jesus Christ. Um, so, in what would be a way that you would recommend or a word of advice for anybody in your line of work that wants to use where they are and what they do um, as more of a tool to show the love of Christ? And
In my line of work, I think that it all comes from if you're going to talk about Christianity and talk about God, you have to break the ice.
yeah,
You have to. A lot of these people are a lot of people. You don't know if they believe in God. You don't know if they want to talk about God. But there has to be. You have to break the ice. So I think that if you, in my line of work, if I was to speak about God or ask someone to pray for somebody, I'd be like, "Hey, are you a Christian?"
yeah,
If you're a Christian, if you ask that question, "Are you a Christian?" Then they know God, and they know that that we'll be praying for them. That, they know that if they ask for us to pray for them, that we will.
right.
But I mean, sometimes it's hard to talk about God. Sometimes a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's not good.
No, but it's a really true statement. Like that's the truth.
Some
Truth of thing.
Some people don't want to talk about that. I think that sometimes if you just ask them, hey, are you a Christian? Well, that's a good icebreaker. What kind of gives you the vibe whether or not they will talk about it or whether or not they want to say it themselves.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do if I was speaking to somebody about Christian.
Okay. And if do you ever do you ever find the opportunity to use your own personal testimony in life with others? I know, I worked as a nurse's assistant in a nursing home before,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that with some patients you are able to get more, personable with when it comes to conversation and things like that versus others. So do you or have you ever found yourself able with the opportunity and the time to use your own personal testimony to
I do. I use
help them?
I once again I refer back to my military career. A lot of times, like I said, I saw a lot of bad things over there, and I can attest that they were hurt pretty bad, and that like I said, when you're scared for your life, you're scared something bad's going to happen, or something that has already happened. A lot of times people do turn to God. So
Yeah.
I use my military career as a testimony sometimes whenever I'm speaking to people, about you know about what's going on, about what's going to happen. And stuff.
Okay. And you mentioned several times that you were a surgical RN in the military, and that makes me curious as to the kind of stuff that you would see there. Like how do you cope with? I'm sure you're a human being, and so you would take some of those things home with you, mentally and emotionally. How do you go about coping with keeping things like that from uh, making you lose sleep at night, or helping yourself to?
Well, I knew it was I knew it was my duty to take care of those guys over there, and some of them, like I said, were pretty messed up. But a lot of my expression of those memories and stuff does come from my faith.
Yeah.
I do sometimes if I think of those things, I'll ask God, hey, take this, take these away, take these memories away from me, or suppress them, or put them somewhere where I'm not thinking about.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like, which I think we would all probably already know the answer to this, but do you personally feel like it's possible, without God to be able to handle and process and cope with the kind of things that you see as a surgical RN, that you take home with you like that emotionally and mentally?
I think that you could probably
Try to, but
you could probably get through it, but it would be a lot harder.
Yeah.
God is somebody you can trust and that you can rely on. He's somebody you can talk to no matter where you are. Like I said before, you can be anywhere you want to be, but you can still talk to him because he'll listen.
Yeah.
But it would be a lot harder for a non-believer or non-Christian, I think, going through life because once again it would cause them, excuse me, it would cause them their mental status.
Yeah.
It would cost them their mental status because you can breathe a lot easier knowing that you put everything in God's hands and leave.
I mean, because it's in His hands anyway.
Right.
Whether one wants to admit it or not,
Right.
God's in control of everything.
Right. But I mean, if you actually say it out loud or tell him, hey, I put this in your hand, I can deal with this thing, then it's like it takes a weight off your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a promise that he makes to us is, to lay things at His feet, lay our burdens at His feet, and He will give us rest and peace and all that about it. So again, thank you for talking to us, being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I do feel like, you talking with us and any other surgical RNs out there that might be looking for ways to find rest and peace in the line of work that you do of helping people. I feel like that's God's work to begin with. Um, I feel like this would be a good help to anybody in the medical field, pretty much, because whether it be in operating rooms, or whether it be in the back of ambulances, or whether it be that like I said, helping people is God's work to begin with. So we encourage you to lean on Him about all of it, and with all of it, and lay it all at His feet, and know that He's in control. And we appreciate everybody for watching and listening today. And we appreciate our Bowls for Souls sponsorship of our new podcast here. And to shop with Bowls for Souls, you go to bowlsforsouls.shop, or you can find us on Facebook. And so we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
All right.
Okay. I think that was pretty good.